everybody. We are back to talk a little bit more about money. I'm really happy to have Sarah Adil from Kiva here. I have long been an admirer of Kiva's work. Sarah will explain it better than I will, but I love the idea that for a very long time, they have been advocates for this idea that, most people are responsible enough and deserve access to capital. And a lot of the systems that we have right now in play just don't work for the average small business owner. So Kiva has been working to solve that problem for a long time and really does incredible work. So Sarah, do you just want to tell us about Kiva, the work you guys do, your approach to supporting small businesses, how you guys think about money?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Carissa. And thank you for what you guys do. It's incredible. I'll just give you a brief preview of Kiva and how it started and where we are now. So Kiva was founded back in 2004, and the whole idea was financial democracy. There are enough people in the world that if everyone decides to help someone in their neighborhood, people will probably don't have to go to big financial institutions. So that was the backbone of Kiva. And in 2013, and Kiva is present in 89 different countries around the world, and that's how they started their operations. Based in San Francisco. But in 2013, Kiva realized that they've helped almost all the world, but they kind of ignored their own backyard, and there was no Kiva US presence. So we weren't doing any lending in the US. So that's when the Kiva US program started, which I'm a part of. And the whole idea, again, was let neighbors help neighbors, right? Like, what about the idea of the bank of people? That's what I think that's a really great name for Kiva, that, it's a bank of people. So Kiva is the world's largest crowd lending platform. Anyone can give as little as $25 to a small business of their liking. There's no interest and no fee on those loans. It's actually, we call ourselves a stepping stool in the financial ladder. So a lot of people who usually get rejected by other financial institutions usually don't get rejected by Kiva, because we don't ask for credit scores, we don't ask for big collaterals, we say we trust your character. So anyone who has a small business, who's about to start a small business, can come to Kiva and raise up to $15,000. And again, with no interest and no fee, and then they have up to 30 months to return that money. So that's the basic idea behind Kiva. And we have 1.8 million active lenders on the Kiva platform, and the number is increasing every day because there are more and more people who are trying to help their neighbors. So that's the whole idea behind the Kiva platform, people helping people.
I love that. So for people who are listening, because for small businesses, right, and unfortunately this will always probably be true, but there's businesses who sort of have achieved some level of financial success and could consider actually helping their neighbor, right? And there's businesses who potentially are earlier in their careers or come from a reality where they don't have that financial success yet, who could be borrowers. So let's say I want to lend. Let's say I want to be on that side of it. How does that work exactly?
So if you want to become a lender, all you have to do is go to the Kiva platform, which is kiva.org, Kiva.org, and you create a profile, right? And there's always an option to create a profile of a borrower or a lender. And when you create a lender profile, then you also have the ability to pick any city, any country in the world where you would like to lend. Then there's another filter where you can say, I only want to lend to women entrepreneurs. And then you can go to that filter. And there's so many different filters. And then if you say, I want to lend in the United States, then there are filters saying, do you want to lend to farmers? Do you want to lend to minorities? Do you want to lend to immigrants? And you can choose those filters or not based on your preference. And then it will take you to that page. Let's say you want to lend to African American businesses, for example, which we are really focused on these days. So you go and it'll take you to an entirely new page. You will see a picture and a small story of the small business about who they are, where they're based, and why they're raising this money. On that profile picture, every borrower gets a profile picture with the story, with the purpose. And that page also has a blue button that says lend. And that gives you the option. All you have to do is just click to that button. And then you can also, there's a drop down menu where you can choose either to lend them $25 or 50 or 100, whatever. That depends on your choice. You choose $25, you click the lend button, and through PayPal, that transaction happens, and the money goes immediately to that small business. And once that small business gives that money back, because at the end of the day, it is a loan.
Yep.
Money comes back to you, and now you have the same $25, and you can go and lend it to an immigrant small business. So the most beautiful thing about Kiva is that it's sort of like recyclable money.
Totally.
You can keep using the same $25 to fund like 3 or 4 people, or you can withdraw your money. So Kiva is sort of like a conduit between borrowers and lenders and the community so that they can connect and support each other.
Amazing. And then let's say I want to borrow money. I want to borrow $500 or $15,000. So how does that process work?
Similarly, you just go to the kiva.org/borrow and you create a borrower profile, which means what's your name. And there's a very simple application that you have to fill out. And it asks certain questions about your business, about your background, about the reason why you're fundraising. And then you fill out the application. It goes to Kiva for review. Somebody at Kiva will review that application, and then they will come back to you and say, Carissa, you are trying to raise $15,000. Looking at your profile and looking at everything that you've given us, we approve you for, let's say, $13,000. Right now, you have 10 or 15 days where we would love for you to bring 8 or 10 people from your own friends and family circle come and lend you as little as $25 each. And that's the only social underwriting Kiva does. Since we're not asking for big collaterals and credit scores and all the other documentation, which is crucial and necessary in other institutions, the only social underwriting we're doing is this person trusted by its own community? Is that a real person? Is that a real business?
Right.
Once you have your 5 friends and 6 family members come to the Kiva platform and give you the $25 each, that's called the private fundraising. Now your profile goes to the public website, right?
Okay.
Which is visible to everybody else, all the 1.8 million lenders of Kiva, plus your own neighborhood, and that's called the public fundraising. And that's when the most beautiful thing happened, where the strangers who probably don't even know you would come and read your story and would like your business and would give you $25.
Amazing.
And once you're fully funded, the money gets transferred, and then you, based on your terms, you return the money when you can.
Amazing.
And then the money goes back to all the same lenders, and that cycle goes on and on and on.
And on and on. That's great. What would you say, having done this work for a long time, I mean, there's so many conversations that have been happening for a very long time, right? About all of the things that are wrong about access to capital for small business and debt for small business and getting money into the hands of small business. What would you say you've learned most doing this work in the last 4 years about, what is important or how we get this right? What do we have to change in the world of small business lending to try to make the system better?
Well, I would say I'm a very visual person. I have a design background, so I've literally drawn sort of like the financial ladder, and it's a funny looking ladder because the first rung is just so impossible to reach. Like if you're at the bottom of the rung of the financial ladder, the less money you have, the harder it is to get money. And as you go upwards, the rungs start to shrink.
Right.
Which I find is so like, what a broken system this is, right? Like you have no money, no one wants to help you. The more money you have, everyone wants to help you. So and that's why we call ourselves the stepping stool, because we give that stepping stool for people to climb up and then hang on to the first rung of the financial ladder. And then we work with a lot of other CDFIs and lenders and SBAs and SBDCs, where once somebody has fully funded in Kiva and they have some financial literacy and they've given the money back, then we refer them to another lender who would now give them maybe 25K, and then another who would give them 50, and that's how like their journey begins. But all I'm trying to say is like, it's sort of broken, right? Like, what if there's no stepping stool? What if they're just standing there forever or falling through the cracks? Who's going to help those people? Like, how are they even going to get started? Because the first rung is so high up that even if you jump really high, you're not going to get to it.
Totally.
And that sucks.
And that is the case. It's interesting. I talk with a lot of people about this idea, right, of privilege, which a lot of people who are privileged, ironically, don't want to talk about, which is, of course, the irony of it. But yeah, it's this idea, right, that how can we live in a world where the less you have, the harder it is, and the more you have, the easier it is, right? There's something wrong with that. I live in New York, and recently Andrew Cuomo, the governor, said this thing that I thought was really profound. He was talking about how during the COVID crisis, as we all know, unfortunately, minority people died at higher rates than white people. And he just said, why is it that the poorest among us always pay the highest cost, right? That there's something wrong with that the people who already have it harder than the rest end up paying the higher cost when things go wrong. So I believe in what you guys are, solving that problem is, I think, necessary. And my personal belief is that sort of economic justice is at the base of almost all other social justice, right? If we can help people be financially secure, it changes everything. It's so important.
No, I think since the recent events, I have really been thinking if economic justice really is the way to solve not just the social but also the racial justice, right? Like that's some like that's a thought that like crosses my mind all the time. Like maybe that is the path to solve all sorts of injustices. If, like, we can figure out a way to empower those people who have nobody who's helping them. And talking about privilege, I just sort of remembered, and I'm sure you've done that too, exercise where everyone stands in the line, and then you tell them, like, and everyone steps back or steps forward, and then there's some people who are left behind. They're just behind in the race.
Totally.
It's not their fault.
Totally.
It was the card that was dealt to them. What are they going to do?
I talk all the time about the fact that, I come from a middle-class family in Canada. That means that, my Canadian passport, right? Luck of the draw. I didn't do anything to be born in Canada. Not a thing, right? But because of that, I got affordable university education. If my family had been born in the US, I might not have gotten a university education because it's so expensive in this country. Luck of the draw. I had free healthcare. So if I ever had any health issues, I was going to be fine. Like, you take for granted that those things make or break a life. And I didn't earn those things, right? Those were gifts bestowed upon me for no good reason, quite frankly. And I think, for whatever it's worth, for those who are listening, who are on the side of the equation where we were lucky when we were born, even more responsibility, I think, sits on our shoulders to do something with that privilege, right? In the case of this specific conversation, to go and lend $100 a month to another small business, right? Literally take some of the gifts we've been given and help someone else, but much broader than that, right? We've got a lot of work to do to create a system that is fair for everyone.
Absolutely. And then going back to the idea of Kiva being the bank of people, I always give this example that, even if like a quarter of people living in Silicon Valley, which is the hub of all the money in the world, like everyone is quite well to do here.
Yeah.
Even if quarter of the population in the Bay Area decide to give just $25 every month,
right,
which is probably less than their lunch money per day.
Yeah.
There is going to be millions and millions of dollars just sitting there waiting for a small business to use, right? And that seems like such an obvious solution.
Totally. We always talk about in our work that, when you help a small business succeed, it's actually an act of justice, because small business owners don't take that, the thing that's so amazing about them is that they don't just take that money and hoard it. The majority of business owners, when they make money, they help their family, they create more jobs, they sponsor little league teams, they create community festivals and fairs, and they create a more just economy. They create an economy where the money flows, doesn't get hoarded. And I couldn't agree more. I always say that, like, if all of us could just think about how we spend our money, right? When we buy, I'm a big crusader for, I get Amazon is convenient, right? But it's not that. We've got to stop spending money where it's convenient and building monopolies. We've got to go buy from real small businesses, because our money, where we spend our money, has a massive impact on the world that we're building. And I think that's true if it's lending, if it's buying, it's crucial.
It's absolutely. And not just that, I think a city seems more alive because of its small businesses,
Totally.
right? Like, I have seen some dead downtowns because they had weird policies where they couldn't even give empty spaces to small businesses. That's empty corners have been lying empty for months and years, but it would just lie empty, and it would just like, and if it would just give it small businesses, there's going to be vitality, and there's going to be like
Totally.
people, and it's just going to change everything. And that's one of the reasons why people love Austin, because it's known to be like one of the best cities where people can start small businesses, because the policies are so easy. And yeah, it's just supporting small business is beneficial in just so many regards, not just
Totally.
one, right?
Totally. Do you have a story of, I think when we talk about small business, sometimes it feels so statistics, right? It's such a big topic, but do you have a story of a specific small business who has, received a Kiva loan and then built something really amazing from it? Just something really practical. Because I think also one of the things that I've been remembering lately is, like, these are not small businesses, these are humans, right? Every small business is a human story. And when we whether we're on the lending side or the borrowing side, right, when we help one more small business succeed, when we create more success for ourselves as business owners, it can have really significant impact. Do you have a favorite story?
I have two.
Okay.
So the first story is actually, so I was hired to run the Silicon Valley office, the Peninsula office. And my first borrower was this amazing, wonderful woman who made the best cannoli in the world. And her business was called Holy Cannoli.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and she was incredible. She was a force of nature. And she came to us and she raised I think $6,000 to $7,000 at that time. And this was like back in the day, 2016 or something. And then from there, and that was a time when, people didn't really know about Kiva, especially Kiva US was a very unknown phenomenon, because people always related to Kiva as something global and something that only operated in the developing countries. So it took us a really long time to make people understand that, yes, it's a loan, it has no interest, and it has no fee. And then they would think it's a scam. So we had a really hard time trying to make people understand that, what, it's here, it's an opportunity, it's a tool, you should use it. So she was our first sort of, I always call her the ambassador. So she was the first person, she was really plugged into the community. And from there, just with that little money, she rented a kitchen, she expanded her operations. We also work very closely with the tech companies. So we introduced her with a couple of tech companies where she started delivering her cannoli, like, how tech companies used to offer lunches to their employees and stuff. So they always had this big supply chain. And from there onwards, she got a food truck.
Amazing.
And then that food truck later converted into a part of a restaurant, like a bakery.
Amazing.
And it was just such a beautiful, and this beautiful woman driving this big white truck that said Holy Cannoli. And that just,
I love that.
It was like the most beautiful stories ever. And then she not only was the first borrower in the Bay Area, she also became the ambassador. On her food truck, there was like posters of Kiva, and she would go and tell people, like, this is an option, you should avail it. And because of her, so many people bought into it. Like, she was our credibility factor.
Amazing.
It was such a beautiful story.
Amazing.
So that's one. And the other one is, again, solving one of those the justice issues was, one of our borrowers was incarcerated for 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
He comes out. When you are in jail, no one wants to help you, no one wants to lend to you, you don't have any history. So he raised a few $1,000s with Kiva, and then used those few $1,000s to start a cleaning business. Got a van, got some cleaning supplies, and started really, really small. And then eventually, now he has employees.
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing.
That's beautiful. And that's something that can be expanded in so many different ways. Like, how can you partner with everyone who's coming out of the system? Like, can you support them in such a way that if nothing else, they can start something small on their own, right?
Totally.
Can we partner with farmers, right? Like,
yes.
Farmers are going through a really hard time, especially because of COVID. Like, can we do that? Can we do that with students who are coming out of, I have stories of like amazing design students who would come out of the industrial design department and then start their own business because they're so creative, just with the few $1,000s that they can get from Kiva. So I just feel like the possibilities are endless, and
totally
everything goes back to the bank of people, right? Like,
I love
people
it.
trust you, and when your community's behind you, there's no way you're not going to succeed.
I love it. And it's really, I have two thoughts I want to ask you before we wrap up. So the first is that I do think a lot of people think of Kiva as how it started, right? Kiva did such a good job as being known for helping, emerging markets, emerging businesses in emerging markets. So for businesses that maybe feel like they're a little further ahead, or maybe are not from an emerging market based in the US, but they are having trouble getting traditional financing, is there a moment where they're sort of too something to come to Kiva, or could any business owner really come and use Kiva? What are your thoughts on the right person to use Kiva?
So I think I have two answers for that. In normal circumstances, where our world was before Corona hit us, we had a certain limit of annual income.
Okay.
Where if you exceed beyond a certain amount, then it doesn't make sense for you to avail this. Then you can get money from anywhere. Like you're already on the fifth rung of the financial ladder.
Right.
You don't want to come back to it.
Yeah.
But these days, we definitely have altered our policy so we can support as many people as we can. And we are assuming that anyone who's coming to Kiva is impacted by COVID. So we've also extended our grace periods. Everyone gets a 6-month grace period, and a lot of other things just so that we can support people. So I think right now, anyone who's coming to Kiva can raise money unless they have a legitimate business and that has been impacted, and they really have no else place to go. And they didn't get a PPP loan, which a lot of people didn't.
A lot of people did not get a PPP loan. I mean, a lot. And that's true. We do business in multiple countries, and that's, not a US specific problem. You talk to a lot of small businesses in almost every country, good business owners with good character, but just didn't get access to government support. And again, it's another example of those who have the most seem to be getting the most support, and those who maybe are just outside of that parameter, but are viable businesses and, do have jobs and do create community. They're in trouble right now. And we need, again, those are the people that you guys are helping and that I think we need to help. One more question I have for you, just because I know you think about this a lot. In the work that we do, when we talk to small businesses about money, there's just a lot of emotion attached to it. We have this amazing statistic that I told another person about, where when people are building their plan in our software, the third step is that they build their financial goal. And it's just a simple thing, but they think about their personal expenses and their business expenses and what they sell. And we watch the data, and literally people get to that section and they log out of the software. It's like this knee-jerk reaction, I don't want to talk about the money. And I think that there's, it shouldn't be this way, but there is. I think there's a lot of shame and a lot of emotion and complexity tied to money for most business owners. How do you see that for the people who come to Kiva? I mean, do you see that there's, well, I don't know how to ask it as not a leading question, but how do you see sort of that emotional relationship to money for businesses that you guys work with?
So what I have noticed is that some part of it is very cultural.
Yeah.
Especially the private fundraising part, where you have to invite your friends and family to come and help you. There are certain communities, and I live in San Jose, which is sort of really diverse, and everyone's here. There's certain communities who were extremely uncomfortable with the idea of asking for help, right? And especially asking for help from their own people. They weren't so concerned about asking for help from strangers, but just saying a friend that, can you give me 25, or lend, not even give, right? Lend.
Right, just lend, right.
So that was something that we really had to struggle with, because that's so ingrained in them, from generations. They can't really totally change that. So that is something that is there. There's no denying of that. And I always tell people that no one's going to help you if you don't ask for it. And there's a really beautiful TED talk by Amanda Palmer, which is asking for help. And I don't know if you've seen it, but this is something that I always share with my borrowers and even my friends. It's when you go and ask for help from somebody, it's a very endearing thing to do, right? Yes. That means you trust them enough to be so vulnerable in front of them.
Yes.
So there's nothing bad about that. And I don't know, it started to get better, but I think it's going to take its time. It's a hard thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we see too, is that So much could be possible for a lot of business owners, but what's in the way is not the possibility, but the sort of vulnerability to ask for help, right? To sort of put yourself out there and just say it. But we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that the help they need is available to them. But there's also this other element where I think people hold themselves back because they don't want to yet ask for help, or say that they need help, right? Because again, I think that's a culture thing. The culture of entrepreneurship that so many of us, read in the magazines is that you're supposed to raise millions and sell for billions and be this, successful hotshot. And we don't talk about the true story of entrepreneurship, right? Which is that you have good days and bad days. And some days you feel like you've got good cash flow and some days you've got terrible cash flow. And managing the money of the business is a game of it. It's not a reflection on if you're talented or not. It's just, it's this element of being a business owner. But yeah, we see the same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's art of asking is hard. You have to learn it.
It is. I think that's right, though. It is a skill. It's a skill you can learn, which I think is encouraging. Okay, last question. Is there any sort of book that you recommend people read, whether it's a small business owner that should read it or just a general population, whether it's specifically about lending or if it's about thinking in broader ways about the economy and financial democracy? Is there anything that you think is just a go-to resource that the world would be better if more people were reading it?
I have two books again.
Okay, great. I love that.
One is Designing Your Life, which was also something that we were taught at Stanford because it's a beautiful book. It really gets you thinking about like what are you really doing with your life, and it's also like a really great balance between free will and fate.
I like
right?
that.
And how do you find that balance? And it has some really great exercises. And I feel like it's just a really great book, not just for small businesses, but for everyone to really understand and carve out their journey, right? Like be intentional about your future,
Yes.
right? Be the architect of your future. So it's a really, really great book. I love that book. I give it to like all my team members. That's my favorite present for people. And the second one is Purple Cow. This is a really, really good book for small businesses. How do you make your product so purple or cool that people would stop and notice it? You don't want to sell stuff that everyone else is selling, right? How do you distinguish yourself? So that book has taught me. I also run a social enterprise and we sell a lot of things. I've been doing it for 10 years. So that also is something that I learned a lot from. Like, how do you make a product that stands out?
I love that. Those are I've read both of them and they are amazing. So I will second those. All right. Well, we're going to have links to both thinking about being a borrower and a lender with Kiva. And I appreciate having the broader conversation though about sort of what's going on in the system of finance, because I want a world where not only are we all more aware of what's actually happening, but that we're all doing something about it. And so I love the idea that one act all of us can do is either borrow or lend, right? That each of those are actually acts of justice. And so each of those acts matter.
Absolutely. That alone can change our world in so many ways.
I agree with you 100%. I will take action. I promise.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you.